The thin and light gaming laptop space is very competitive, and this year Razer made their Blade 16 thinner and lighter, but also a lot sexier. But what does that thinness sacrifice? And was it even a good idea? Well, let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. From the outside, the 2025 Blade 16 is nothing short of beautiful. It's got that classic Razer black color with a green LED logo on the back. I think it looks incredibly sleek, but some people might disagree with that. Fingerprints will definitely be visible on this color though. It's got a full aluminum body and it feels extra sturdy. Razer laptops feel like you're carrying around a bulletproof vest. But not in a bad way, because the Blade 16 is one of the lightest gaming laptops around. And also one of the thinnest. This is actually the thinnest Razer laptop ever. I guess it gives homage to its name though, since the inside edges of the Blade are a little sharp. But overall, this thing is definitely a stunner. Now despite this thin body, it's got all the big boy specs you can imagine. 32 GB of RAM and the newest AMD and Nvidia chips. It can be spec'd up to a Ryzen AI 9 HX370 and a full fat RTX 5090. But I chose to go with the Ryzen 365 because, well, we'll get to pricing later on. I simply got the most balanced and reasonably priced model in my opinion. The RTX 5070 Ti in here also has access to 140 watts, which should be more than enough to reach its full potential. With an emphasis on should.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
For such a thin laptop, it's still got basically every port you can think of though. Even a full-size SD card slot. Unfortunately, no Ethernet port since it's so thin, but with some Japanese engineering, it's definitely possible. As for its charger, it's actually very compact for 280 watts. I'm pretty sure this thing is a GAN brick. It uses the proprietary Razer connector at this 90-degree angle, and while it is a bit bulky, once you put it in there, it is not coming out by accident. You could always just use a smaller charger for on the go though, since it supports up to 100 watts of USB-C charging. Now continuing on the theme of beauty, take a look at this keyboard. Razer is well known for their RGB, and there's a good reason why. Every key has its own backlight, so it can display basically every kind of effect you can imagine. And that backlight is very well balanced, and almost gets brighter than the display itself. If you're into aesthetics, this laptop is definitely for you. It has full-size function row keys, which a lot of people will appreciate. And when you press the function key, it actually only lights up the possible FN key combinations, which is quite neat. It also has these 5 macro keys on the side, which you can customize in the Razer Synapse app. But it has half-size up and down arrow keys, which might take a bit to get used to. Now here's what the keys sound like. Razer has really improved their keyboards over the years. This one's a lot more clicky and has a very obvious actuation point. Overall, it's definitely one of my favorite keyboards on a laptop so far. And the same can be said for its trackpad. It makes very good use of this laptop's size, since it's pretty damn big. It's made of glass, so it feels and sounds great. It's nice and clicky and very well balanced. And the actual tracking is a lot more responsive than on other laptops. Razer has some good trackpad drivers. As for its display, when you just look at its specs, it sounds amazing. A 240Hz OLED display is simply the best of the best. And it is the best of the best, if it weren't for its reflectiveness. I don't know if Razer knows what an anti-glare display is, but it is definitely not this. If you're into makeup, I guess this is great, since it's basically as reflective as a mirror. But for me, it's just awful. Trying to film this thing is downright impossible. On the bright side, this is a genuinely amazing display. 240Hz on an OLED means that every game feels incredibly smooth. Fast-paced games like CS2 are an absolute breeze on here. And the OLED display is great as well. It's got vibrant colors, a good peak brightness at 500 nits, and the blacks are very black. Only problem is, with this reflective display, it's not really black. It's just whatever color it's reflecting, which kind of defeats the purpose of an OLED. And there are laptops that have solved this issue, but Razer just isn't there yet. Its display hinge is nice and tight and feels high quality, but it still has quite some display wobble. And while it doesn't open up 180 degrees, it goes back quite far. Which brings us to my favorite part, its speakers. These speakers sound pretty damn good. They've got quite a lot of bass, so it's nice and punchy. They can get very loud, and they just sound nice and clear. These are possibly some of the best speakers I've heard on a Windows laptop. But can it beat the Speaker King? Well, let's compare them in the next video. On their own, these speakers just sound great. The Blade 16 has a very high quality webcam for some reason. I've never seen one look this clear. So it'll be great for video calling and, well, anything else you might need a high quality webcam for. All Razer laptops come with the Razer Synapse software. This is basically your hub to control everything from performance to sound to all the RGB customization. It has improved a lot over the years and it now shows a lot of information. In the Performance tab, you can set power profiles, choose how much power goes to the CPU or GPU, and you can even undervolt your CPU and overclock your GPU. But it still has some Razer jank. Sometimes Synapse doesn't even recognize your laptop, so you just can't change anything until you restart your laptop. And all of this customization I just named is not accessible when you're on battery. The only thing you can kind of choose is your fan speed. It's definitely improved from the last time I looked at it, but stuff like this just ruins it for me. Now, the biggest part of a gaming laptop is how it performs. So how does it do in some benchmarks? Well, it depends on if you're on battery or not. Plugged in, this Ryzen 9 processor does quite well, but it's basically just a rebranded 2024 CPU, so compared to other 2025 laptops, it doesn't score very high. But in 3D Mark TimeSpy, its GPU scored very high. I'm pretty sure that RTX 5070 Ti is getting a lot of power. But everything changes when we unplug the charger. On battery, the Blade 16 turns into a 7-year-old laptop that your grandma bought from Goodwill. And in 3D Mark TimeSpy, it gets curb stomped into RTX 3050 levels of performance. I'll explain in a couple of minutes why this might be happening, but first I want to see how it handles some actual games.
Okay. I love you, man. Oh, okay.
Kinda game.
You motherfucker, man. You motherfucker, man.
I'll hack you to pieces. Ha! You'll never take me down.
Uh-oh.
Overall, it performed very well in most games, but there are some real issues that we have to look at here. The Blade 16 has very irrational performance. On one TimeSpy run, it performed on par with a laptop RTX 5080, but in the next run, it's barely as fast as an RTX 4070. Okay, but that's just benchmarks, right? Well, this issue persisted in games as well. In Cyberpunk, it was constantly stuttering while driving around, which really sucks. Another big issue is that performance on battery. The moment you unplug this thing, it becomes noticeably slower. The whole system suddenly just has random stuttering, and basic stuff like starting Windows Explorer is now just slow. The Synapse app also becomes even less responsive, and stuff like function keys sometimes straight up just don't work. Now I know someone's gonna say that this might be a software issue or something, but I have fully reset it twice. I've also done a full clean driver install and still the same thing. The reason for this is that Razer heavily limits its CPU and GPU while on battery. And sure, this happens on some other laptops as well to save battery life, but this should not be at the cost of basic usability. I had this exact problem on my 2023 Razer Blade 14, and they should really do something about it. But here's the crazy part. All of that CPU and GPU limiting is not helping its battery life. I tested it in two scenarios, under light use and during gaming. In the light use scenario, I played a YouTube video with its display at full brightness at 60 Hz and with the GPU disabled. And in this very light use case, it lasted a little longer than 7 hours. Now that might be fine for some people, but it's a lot lower than the 9 to 10 hour average of other thin and light gaming laptops. And in real world use, that's probably gonna be more like 4 to 5 hours of battery life. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 with the same settings as before until its battery died. And here it lasted about as long as any other gaming laptop. Remember folks, don't buy a gaming laptop expecting an on-the-go gaming experience. In terms of thermals and fan noise, it did quite a bit better though. The CPU stayed very cool, staying between 85 and 88 degrees at a maximum. And the GPU stayed very comfortably below 80 degrees, which is very good. I'm starting to think the Blade 16 is holding itself back, because it's running a little bit too cool for a 140 watt RTX 5070 Ti. And we didn't see any amazing performance from that high power limit, but it's still running very cool. In terms of fan noise, it also stayed relatively quiet compared to other gaming laptops. But while idle, it had a constant fan noise, which was really annoying while recording. At random times, these fans will just kick on, even if I'm doing absolutely nothing. And since you cannot create a custom fan curve on battery, you're just kind of stuck with it. Now for a 16-inch laptop, it has pretty disappointing upgradeability. It does have two M.2 SSD slots, so you can upgrade its storage without replacing its Windows drive. And it also has a replaceable Wi-Fi card. But it has no upgradable RAM. It's fully soldered, which really sucks in a 16-inch gaming laptop. Sure, thin laptops are nice, but when you can't upgrade the RAM anymore, I'd say it's too thin. So what are you paying for this thin beauty? Well, it's a Razer laptop, so obviously it's going to be very expensive. This model with the RTX 5070 Ti starts at around $3,000. Yes, cheaper models are available, but the cheapest one with an RTX 5060 is still $2,400. Now you also have the option for an HX 370 CPU, which is faster, but you need to have an RTX 5090 with that, which is, well, very expensive. Which brings us to our conclusion. Is the 2025 Razer Blade 16 worth it? Well, in my opinion, no. Don't get me wrong, it is an absolute beauty. It's thin, it has great looking RGB, and has a really good keyboard and trackpad. But it is riddled with problems. It has a mirror of a screen, it's got really inconsistent performance, and on battery life, it's just downright slow. So for me, that Razer tax is really not worth it this time. The Razer Blade 14 might be a different story though, so I will review that one in a little bit. But its biggest competition is definitely the Asus Zephyrus G16. The 2025 Blade 16 was literally made to be more like the Zephyrus, so I'll be comparing those two in the next video. Stay tuned. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Walter, Suryansh, Daniel, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Squashbond, Alan, Toasted, A Random Guy, QME, Eric the Rad, and Wesley Rhodes. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club. So you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.
Guten Tag.